Perfect. So again, thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here again and talk and teach people basically in under the umbrella of BIBF. However, this time around it's going to be remotely, which is remotely done, which is kind of weird, but we have to live during these COVID-19 days, right? Okay. So first things first, I want to tell you that this session is going to be about artificial intelligence, as you probably know. However, you can go back to the main event the second this talk is done. We're probably going to take almost 1 hour, 15 minutes for the actual content. And then we're going to have some space probably for 15 or 30 minutes, depending on how you guys are actually interested in the topic. All right. Okay, cool. So topic today is going to be artificial intelligence through the dire times of the COVID-19. Let's go forward. All right. So a bit about me. My name is Ameen Al Tajer. I'm actually the CEO of INFINITEWARE. We are an AI business. We've been around for almost 10 years. We have products and services that span the spectrum of artificial intelligence, and we've done in-house products and services within that space. I myself used to work for Saudi Aramco. I used to work in the States for some time in simulation and other technical spaces. I do a lot of work within the technical domain, notably artificial intelligence, blockchain, cybersecurity as well, and I have a very vast experience with game development. I actually started the game development scene back in 2012 after I got back from the States. So there you have it. I think this is more than enough about me. You can access my website at ameenaltajer.com. I'm also reachable at Ameen Al Tajer on Instagram, on Twitter. You can follow my news and updates on this domain, the technical domain, and AI specifically. And you can also follow INFINITEWARE's work in infiniteware.com, and you can check out our work in the clients basically. All right. So going forward, here at INFINITEWARE, being an AI business, we have core values that we live by. The first one is we utilize intelligence to make value, which is really important to our mission. So we're big believers that intelligence is the way to go. We want to make sure that we have what it takes in order to provide companies, individuals, nonprofits, and every single entity with what it takes to make value in their line of work. Be it commercial or be it social, whatever it is that these guys have, we intend to provide intelligence. The second thing is we automate mundane work. Being somebody who worked in the corporate environment for a very long time, I noticed it with my own eyes that there's a lot of mundane work, a lot of manual mundane work that we normally do on a daily basis that we don't give a lot of regard to. However, it takes a lot of the time chunks that we have available in each single day. And our core mission here is just to take it out of the picture. The third thing is we promise more intellectual bandwidth, meaning when you have things taken off out of your plate and you have more things being done automatically, of course with your consent, you get more intellectual bandwidth so you can focus on what really matters the most. Fine. I think we're good here on what we do. On the client side, you've got Saudi Aramco, you've got government entities here and there. You've got banks, we've got STC. So we've been around for probably 10 years. We've done a lot of work in this, and this is probably not updated. We also have the government of Bahrain. We have certain ministries, notably the Ministry of Interior also. But for today, we have four things that we want to chart. The first one is we want to have more clarity about the topic of AI, what it really is, and we want to correct some of the trending confusion that I've been seeing lately in social media. And also the applications of artificial intelligence in business, especially nowadays during these times for the COVID-19. Third, we're going to go to more details on how to adopt it in business, meaning if you really get interested in the topic, I'm going to show you exactly where to start, how you can get involved with the whole subject. And fourth, last but not least, we're going to go over the challenges and the risks of adopting artificial intelligence within your line of work. Okay, so charting the first chapter first. Let's see AI in its naked form. Let's just clear the confusion for a second. Now, when you look at it, artificial intelligence has so many meanings, has so many definitions, right? So you've been hearing probably about the Terminator, you've been hearing about robots, you've been hearing about smart applications, probably RPAs if you're within, if you're educated on this field, on this subject. But generally speaking, and this is again the definition coming in from Wikipedia, generally speaking, artificial intelligence is all about artificially depicting cognitive skills like learning and problem solving, most of the time mimicking human intelligence. So what we do normally, human beings, we associate intelligence with our being. So to us currently, human beings are the best form to depict intelligence. And so what we're trying to do here, we're trying to somehow create the same feeling, create the same atmosphere of that intelligence and give it to artificial beings, be it applications or robot or whatever it is. And the two most difficult core skills, honestly speaking, the first one is learning, which is a core we have in uh, guys who joined in. Please just mute your mic if you don't mind. All right. Just a second. I'm just gonna mute all of you guys if I can here. Yes. So yeah, going forward. So basically, it's learning, which is the most difficult core characteristic that we have as human beings, which is very, very difficult to actually replicate in machines and programs. And also the word, the sentiment, problem solving. So normally a lot of people just put in this sentence, problem solving, within the resumes, but honestly, doing the work of problem solving is so much more demanding. So yeah, this is the ultimate definition if we want to take it from Wikipedia. However, going forward, you've probably noticed in the last couple of years, starting with 2013, there's been a lot of heat, there's been a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. And people seem to find it very difficult to know exactly what is true among all of this hype. So what happens is, back in the day, if you wanted to create a program, if you wanted to create a solution, what goes in is you have input. Basically, you get the requirements from somebody, be it the business, and then you, as a developer or somebody who has the technical skills to create a program, you take their requirements and you just channel it into a technical programming, meaning you just write a program that does exactly what they want so they can get the output. Now, this is really, really great, and this has been the case for a very long time. No problems in there. However, with the new dawn of machine learning, a lot of things change. So currently, with the advent of machine learning, what happens is we're not really thinking about doing the actual coding, the actual programming in here. We have a different paradigm of doing much more intelligent stuff. So what we do normally is we acquire the input, and then we acquire the desired output, and then we get the program, meaning the artificial intelligence algorithm gives us the actual program that we want. So we don't write it manually ourselves. We just put the input, we put the output, and there you go. You get the program organically without putting, the complicated code in between. So this is exactly what machine learning is. You just give it input, you give it output, and you get a program or algorithm to get you exactly the behavior that you want. Now, this can get you a picture of why data is really a very huge subject, because with this model, with this paradigm of machine learning, nothing works unless you have data. And without the aspect of data, all of this pipeline doesn't actually work. And not only that, you don't just need data, you actually need a lot of data. You need a lot of data in order to get this to work. So if you have a few rows, let's say if you're trying to classify an image, if it's a dog or a cat, and you have only 5 images of a cat and another 5 images of a dog, it wouldn't really work organically. You need a lot of data. And the word lot is actually here is very subjective. So it depends on exactly the context of the problem that you have. Some problems require thousands of rows in order to do the job. Other problems require millions of rows. So it's really it's super subjective. Now, if we wanted to clearly just put the boundaries of those specific terms that you heard, here are those. So the topic of artificial intelligence is really big. And as we said, it talks about how to create that intelligence feeling and for other stuff other than human beings. And then when you go inside, there's the sub domain, which is machine learning. Now, this is really important to know because artificial intelligence is not all about deep learning and machine learning, the things that we keep hearing about on the news. There are other fields in artificial intelligence. We've got genetic algorithms, we've got evolutionary programming, we've got computer vision. So you've got so many fields that are within artificial intelligence. However, the thing that got a lot of heat recently is deep learning, specifically from the machine learning domain, because it does things very differently. So yeah, so there you have it. These are the boundaries. Artificial intelligence is the biggest circle. And then you have a subdomain called machine learning, where we have statistics and other tools that we're using to get to the information. And then when you go also deeper, you'll find deep learning, which is a way of doing machine learning, but very specific to acquiring the data in hand. So there you got it. Now, when you look into deep learning, well, let's say machine learning, the two domains in here. So the two domains in here, these guys have many subdomains also that they're doing their work on. So the first one is called supervised learning. Now, supervised learning means that you learn from the data that you have in your hand. I'll give you an example. So imagine you want to predict the price of a house. Now, the way you do this, just like a normal human being, is that you find a lot of examples, you go through a lot of examples until you get to that state, to that gut feeling where you know that, hey, this house is probably priced around, let's say, 160,000 or give or take. So in order to replicate the same behavior here in machine learning, in supervised learning, we have to give a lot of data. So our AI program, so-called model, can learn from those data and figure out the commonalities between them. And what happens is in supervised learning, which is very crucial and different from unsupervised learning, is that even though you provide data, we have what we call the label. So the label is the target information that you're trying to predict. So imagine I have the price in the example that I just said. So the price itself of a house is the label that we're trying to get. But the other aspects, the other features of that house, for example, the number of rooms, the area at hand, the other aspect, how many rooms, how many bathrooms, the location of the house, all of these things, they're considered features. And so in supervised learning, you have features and you also have labels. And label is exactly what you're trying to predict. So this is supervised learning, which is the most common by far. When you go to unsupervised learning, you do things differently. So in unsupervised learning, we don't get a label. So yes, we get data again, but however, we don't know exactly what we're looking for. A good example is if you have a chunk of customers, you have a lot of details on customers, and you want to find common patterns across those customers. However, you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So you're not looking for the age, for example. You're not looking for, let's say, purchasing power, those characteristics. You just want to put the data, you want to dump it in, and you want the AI algorithm to give you the commonalities among the data that you have in hand. So you want to find a structure, basically. This is where unsupervised learning, where it comes in. It's really, really beautiful, a wonderful field of machine learning, but it's a bit complicated when we compare it to supervised learning. Now, reinforcement learning, on the other hand, is much more complicated. And it's not about giving you a prediction. It's not just about giving you more structure to the data. This is exactly where we go and we give a bit of action power to the AI agent. So normally in games, you have reinforcement learning. Normally in simulation, you've got reinforcement learning because it helps people to give their AI agents, be it a robot, be it a program, the ability to take actions on their end. So it's not just about giving you information, just like the other two that we explored here in the beginning. With reinforcement learning, you can go ahead and actually give, a bit of control power to the AI agent at hand. You want to give it action so it can, choose things and do things. All right, let's start with one popular item under supervised learning. So in supervised learning, you've got many things that you can accomplish, even from a business perspective. But the first thing is called classification. With classification under supervised learning, it's basically a very common exercise that we normally do under machine learning, which basically means if I have a lot of items, can I classify them into multiple categories? And this is a very common issue again. A good example is looking at photos of cats and also photos of dogs. Now, if you ask a programmer to go and actually do this manually, they're not going to be able to do this if they program it explicitly, because it is such a tremendous, like it's a super difficult job to really do. Ask any program, where do you start? Do you look at the eyes? Do you look at the pixels of the nose, for example? Do you look for whiskers? How does it work? We don't exactly know where to start, which is the most difficult aspect. And so this is a very typical problem that we can solve in machine learning, because we can have a lot of access to the data, and then we allow the machine learning algorithm to itself tell us if this is a cat or a dog. So what happens is, for this kind of problem using machine learning under classification, we get a lot of images, as you probably can see on the left. We have a lot of images for cats from different angles, different qualities for the picture, and we also have the same thing for the dogs on the right side. Yeah, so we get a lot of things that we can work with. And then, and by the way, I did not mention this before, but you might find it difficult to get the data set, meaning the data that we work with. But honestly, there's a lot of good resources. One of them is this popular website Kaggle, and you actually can Google that. There's a lot of free data sets that are available to us that we can use in order to power up our AI projects and models. So when you get let's say thousands of photos for dogs and thousands of photos for cats, you can work on a project like that. And by the way, on Kaggle.com, if you go there, you're gonna find this data set. It's actually available, and you also can get it for free, which is super cool. Another example for traditional, for good scenarios for such a thing, is that you don't just work with photos. A good example is fraud detection. So if you work in the banking industry or the financial industry, there's a lot of difficulty for people, especially in the risk department, to actually know if the transactions that we have at hand is legit or not legit, which is a very complicated issue, honestly. Where do you go? Where do you start? Do I look at the date? Do I look at the price that was paid, the cost? Do I look at the category, the description? Where do you start as somebody who's working in the compliance, not really compliance, probably in the risk department of banks, when you try to investigate if this is a fraudulent transactions or not? And so it's a very difficult problem to do by hand. There's a lot of algorithms that a lot of people develop across the years in order to enhance this, but however, it remains a very difficult issue to be done by hand. And so it's also the perfect problem that we can use in our classification machine learning AI space. And so what we normally do is, if you get a lot of data that you can work with, notably, as you can probably see, transactions dating back to history, you can feed it in a machine learning algorithm again, and then you can get, when you label it, so when you say, imagine I have another row in here, another column where I say fraud, not fraud. And then I say this is a fraudulent transactions, this is not fraudulent transactions. So all the historical data that I built across the years, I now can feed them to a machine learning algorithm, and it can help me to really understand if what I have in my hand is currently a fraudulent transactions or not. So remember, everything goes back to the idea of having data to work with. So all of these tricks that I'm currently talking about in artificial intelligence don't really work out unless you've got a huge amount of data to work with, right? Cool. So this was classification, which is basically saying this belongs to this category, this does not belong to this category. If it's either a cat or a dog, which is very common. Now, the other aspect of supervised learning, remember, we're still, if I have to go back here, we're still just charting this area, supervised learning. We're not going to the other ones yet. So if we go back, regression is another item to to supervised learning, but it is a bit different than classification. You see, with classification, you're basically just categorizing items, right? You say dogs or cats, but with regression, you have a continuous line of numbers and you're trying to figure out the right number. Meaning, it's the perfect problem for predicting numbers, predicting sales, predicting items that revolve around numbers. And this is exactly what people use when they do their housing prices. So if you go to a mature bank and they get all of your papers and all the details like about the real estate that you have in your hand, they're trying to get and trying to buy. If they're mature, they're most likely going to use a housing system, a mortgage system that allows them to feed the data, the number of rooms, the area of the property, the location, and all of these other aspects representing the features. And then the label in this time around, it's not going to be house or not house, just like what we've seen with cats and dogs. It's actually going to be a number. So you're trying to predict the right number for the price. So the label this time around is going to be the price. And this is a common problem that we find in the banking industry, because if you think about it, it's also the same thing. It requires a lot of people to use their experience in order to predict if this is fine or this is not. I mean, if to get their expertise to basically tell, okay, this house is probably priced at 160,000 BD or 180, give or take. So with machine learning, because we can learn from the patterns, we can find those commonalities autonomously using the machine learning algorithm. Again, remember, this algorithm is generic. So you're not coding anything. You're basically just putting data in a black box that spits the output for you, which is really great from a functionality point of view. However, there are issues on understanding how that is actually done, okay? But that is the case with prediction, or in this case, regression. We get details on how to, on getting numbers and prediction using the power of data that we have in our hands. So there you have it, basically clearing the confusion so far about what is really real about AI and what is not real. Let's talk about the application now. Let's start this here. So first things first, when it comes to remote efficiency, especially during these times, we've seen it clearly that a lot of businesses suffer because they were not ready. They were completely dependent on being physically in the office, what turned out to be really, really horrible for most businesses. People had to close their businesses. They did not have presence online. So it was not really, really that great. However, some businesses were really lucky, slash maybe they've done their homework and they were mature in a way in their infrastructure and all of these other matters. So remote efficiency is a big deal if you want to survive during this age. A good idea to think about, how about if you really had a remote assistant that lives in your infrastructure remotely, even though you're here, being at the house, waiting for the curfew to be finished, being with your loved ones and your family, but you also want to get things done remotely. So in a way, you still need a presence in your office to get things done, which is super difficult during these times, right? And we also have the idea of bandwidth. So many businesses said, you know what, we're going to just go and install a VPN connection, a proper one, a virtual private network connection. I'm sure most of you are currently, let's say, familiar with that aspect, given the COVID-19 forced us to go and remotely connect to our workplaces remotely to get things done. So a huge issue is the idea of bandwidth, because a lot of users are currently connecting concurrently to the same work environment using the same VPN lines. You're still bounded by bandwidth, and bandwidth is not really great when you want to share videos, you want to share files. This is why a lot of businesses really, really suffer from the idea of VPN during these times. On paper, it looks great. However, it's not so great in practice given the limitations. And this is where we actually invested in creating a product that we've done almost 5 or 4 years back. It's called, so yeah, the draft name was Abby, but the actual product is called Coveria, and you can actually see it on our website, INFINITEWARE.com. But the premise is, without delving into business details, is that you've got an AI chatbot living on your premises. So it's not like a regular chatbot that you find online on Microsoft or other websites where you can just ask questions and it will give you generic answers coming in from the FAQ. However, with this chatbot, it's a living being chatbot, meaning it has the authority, it has the power to execute things. It can remind you of other stuff. It can do things. It can get information from multiple systems. And that is exactly the case when you have a complicated infrastructure. Now, when you go to banks, or you go to other places, all right, where it's super difficult to get information, let's say a bank or other financial institution where you work with a lot of systems and it becomes difficult to find the information you want, it becomes really interesting to have a chatbot that lives in the infrastructure that you only deal with in terms of text and it understands your language, be it English or Arabic. Even if you have a broken grammar for some reason or your syntax is not really great, it gets the exact sentiment of what you're trying to do. And this is exactly what we're doing with Kavriya. So this has been a great bestseller for us in Saudi, given the situation that we had with the COVID-19. And this really works great because it works on mobile phones. You don't need your machine, you don't need your PC. So all in all, this is a great addition to a lot of businesses that want to probably be ready in a way, even if their VPN online fails them. All right. Now, uncertainty is another aspect. So, as we said, because these times are very demanding and we don't know what the hell is happening, we don't know how, if we're gonna survive the business, if we really, if our numbers are gonna really play out and help us down the line. So, for uncertainty, where AI really comes into play is in the idea of figuring out if we have fake news. So you probably remember from what happened with Facebook and the other issues that we had in the past, a lot of people were suffering from, looking into fake news and nobody can really tell if you're looking at real news or what. Now with machine learning, there's a lot of platforms uh, now, which is funny again, notably Facebook is using such tools in order to sanitize the information and the data in order to get to the real news and just eliminate fake news altogether from the story. So yeah, this is one of the use cases that we can rely on, if you have platforms that are feeding to users. So imagine you have a social media, imagine you are a branding company or let's say a press company that publishes news or articles. So it's really important for you to make sure that your source in this case, is really legit. And with the advent of AI currently, with the status quo of AI, we can really tell if we have fake news or really, really, really real news. So this is something really great to put your eyes on. And also recommendation. So during these times, it becomes really difficult for us to do sales. So if you work in the retail business, and you want to sell things in order to make a profit, it becomes difficult to find people as we don't have the same organic penetration to the market like before, given the situations and circumstances. However, with proper machine learning, with proper recommendation engines, we have this idea of associating customers with each other. So by basically just using the information that you have of your customers with a proper AI algorithm and model, AI agent basically, you can exactly know what your customers want, even without really them sharing a lot of information with you. You just work with whatever you have at hand. And this is a good example to see if you look at, for example, Spotify. So if you use Spotify, which is a very popular music service, you will know that Spotify is really great when it comes to recommending music. It's so super amazing. So if you listen to a couple of tracks, all of a sudden you get a radio that tells you that you might like that song, you might love that song. And sometimes you wonder, it's like, how come this guy really knows what I like, even though I did not say a lot of details when I enrolled in the service. And also, such services allow you to become friends with other people. So let's say that I'm a friend of Ahmed, and then Ahmed listens to a lot of rock music, for the sake of example. And because I'm friend with Ahmed, and I like Ahmed's posts on the feed of Spotify, all of a sudden Spotify knows the specific things that I like about his music set and it shares it with me. So the idea of recommendation can also be applied not only in music but also in products. So imagine you have people who are, let's say, that love your food, just because they're friends and because the taste of their friends, or you can also recommend other stuff. So recommendation is a great deal. We've been seeing in business long time back, and we can also capitalize on that in this space too. And also what I want to talk about here is that Google itself relies heavily on machine learning, specifically machine learning, deep learning in this case, where it really, let's say, it tweaks the results that you get from the Google search box the second you write something, depending on the the context. So if you look around now and you try it, really, whatever you write in the search box is somehow going to give back results to you that are very associated with the whole COVID-19 situation, which is which is really expected given the situation, of course. But however, Google also goes back and see what the context is and tries to associate your result set to the context. So it's really smart in that space, and it does that using the power of machine learning. So it's not possible to do that in other fixed AI systems where you have regular code done by programmers. With that case, you always need to refer back to the programmer to add more functionality, more things to the code. So yeah, that is the case with that situation. However, with machine learning, the system automatically adjusts itself dynamically using the content that it has. So with Google, Google gives you more data, with Google, because it has a lot of data on the searches, the recent searches by people, their data, it can tell you what is really important depending on the context of the thing that you're looking for. And this is also the case with Siri, um, Amazon Echo, or Alexa, as you probably know it. So it's always the same case. Another thing that I want to talk about is when you work with customers, you normally have a lot of information on them, hopefully consensually. But if you get a lot of information of those people, it becomes great for you to suggest more things. I'll give you an example. We worked with clients who had like an e-commerce website. And so they had access to the preferences of the users, other stuff that they like. However, they did not uh, figure out, more ways to allow the customers to spend more when it comes to, getting more merchandise from these guys. And so what we do is we write a machine learning model that uses the power of recommendation in order to tweak the experience and make it very personal to the user. So when you come in, and let's say you go to your website, your favorite e-commerce website, you get more merchandise, more products that are suited to your preference, which is really, really great because this gives you this sort of personal experience. You don't get it somewhere else. A lot of businesses, because they're trying to get things fast and easy, they have this generic website. Things just are super generic. You try to find your way around when you think about products. However, when you have a personalized experience, I'll give you an example. Imagine you're a super coffee guy, okay, and you're a big fan of coffee, and because you always swipe your credit card in order to get that coffee, what happens is, because your bank has access to your data, which is exactly the case, in case you didn't know, in their core banking systems and such, you'll be able to get more details from the bank itself. So the bank will be able to offer you more products relevant to coffee because they know your information. They exactly know that you have a huge passion when it comes to coffee. Now, all of these things make it very personal in terms of experiences, right, for the customer. And this is the holy grail, basically. And when we talk about the financial world, there's a lot of places where we rely, either we know about it or we don't know about it, but we rely on artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning. And so a good example is due diligence. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but in banks, most of the times, where people, when they try to get to do transactions or something, you you always have this sort of constant check by the due diligence and the risk department to tell you that, okay, if this transaction is fraudulent, if this behavior is not legit, all of these things happen because you have a very proactive, risk department that doesn't, that relies on your data in order basically to tell if you're doing something legit or not. Now, this happens easier for you when you have a system that does that for you. And this is the case with most sophisticated banks. Now, new banks, what they do, they feed all of your data, the core banking, and then they begin to analyze your habits. So they tell you that, hey, I know Ameen is a big fan of video games. Ameen does this and this and this and these times. And all of these things happen automatically, by the way. So we're not coding this. So we're not adding to the cost of development, let's say. And so when this happens automatically, the system becomes much more flexible in figuring out if there's anomalies in the system. There's anomalies that, okay, for example, if you get a real legit, let's say fraudulent transaction, the system will be able to pick it up by itself without allowing people to code for it, which is really, really great. So this has been the case in the financial world. As we said, so we always rely on the fraudulent detection thing in real time, as we shed light in the past. I wanted to also tell you this from experience. I know a lot of banks in Bahrain, they do actually this. So it's really cool that we have financial institutions in Bahrain that rely on this methods and technologies in order to power up their systems and make sure that everything is safe and secure for their customers. Yeah, so this is really, really great. So also, even the idea of KYC, or know your customer, and risks, it's not only fraudulent transactions, even for things that require prediction. That, okay, you probably heard about credit score. Maybe something I'm not really, I'm not fond of the idea of credit score. However, credit scoring is the perfect case also to tell if you have a customer that can go bankrupt real soon, or if they're going to be stable for some time. Now, I don't know how true that is during these COVID-19 times, but however, because we have a lot of data on the behavior of the customers, especially in banks, think about it. Your bank has almost all of your financial behavior. They exactly know what you buy, the merchants you go to, your habits, the amount that you spend every single Friday, let's say, when you go out. So all of these data just resemble a gold mine of data for banks. And so they have a really good picture of what it takes for you to stick around and make sure you pay your loan until the end of time. So yeah, credit scoring is the perfect use case also when it comes to machine learning. Also in robotics, don't get me started, but basically every factory, we've been seeing a lot of surges when it comes to using robots, using autonomous machines and getting things done, especially in factories like cars. You probably can just look Tesla up online and check out their videos and check out how they're really relying on the idea of automated manufacturing. Now, there is another term very relevant to this field. It's called Industry 4.0, in case you did not hear about it. But the idea about Industry 4.0, the premise is you want to have a fully automated factory that does everything by itself. You might think about it as a very simple case, but honestly, automating a factory space is very difficult. It's like playing in a soccer team. When you have so many variables, you have so many things that can go wrong, you have to act in a dynamic way, in a flexible way. You want to tweak things in the runtime, meaning if something goes wrong, if something breaks down for whatever reason, you want to have the power and authority to allow robots to fix things by themselves to make sure everything is good, and not delay manufacturing and production. So this is really, really important, and we've been seeing it in manufacturing. Yeah, but basically what we're trying to say here, just let the machines do the job during these times. They're not susceptible to COVID-19. Let them do their work. This is what they do best, especially mundane work and such. And just focus on what you do best, which is the financial capacity. I'm sorry, the intellectual aspects that really matter at the end of the day. So this is basically for the space in robotics and manufacturing. Even in government, I mean, in government, we've been seeing a lot of surge in adoption for technologies that are within the space of AI, which is important because there's a lot of volume, a lot of data coming in and flowing into governments, especially these times where people are asking for subsidization, for example. They're submitting their papers to the government in order to enroll for subsidy and other, basically grants for businesses to survive and such. And we have also seen this in Tamkeen, locally speaking, here in Bahrain. And so, again, this is the perfect case for people to really rely on machine learning and artificial intelligence to get things done. Now, I know a lot of businesses, a lot of government entities, especially here in Bahrain, where they rely on image recognition and what we call OCR, basically image recognition, using machine learning to really scan the most important parts of your document and feed it automatically to the system. Now think about this problem. It would be very difficult for us to manually do this. When you have different handwritings, when you have different styles of people writing stuff and everything. Can you really automate such a thing if you don't have the power of machine learning? You know, how do you go and ask a programmer to look at images and decide if this digit is one or two or three or whatever it is? So it's such a tremendously difficult job. And with the advent of machine learning, we can accurately get to that information with the minimal amount of error, which is really, really great. I know a lot of businesses in Bahrain, in addition to specific government entities that I have exposure to. I know they developed their own systems using machine learning, and now they're picking up a lot of applications, a lot of paperwork from their customers, from people outside, and they just feed it within their machine learning algorithm, and they pick up the most important parts of that document, no matter what the handwriting is. So super, super great. People should be grateful as it's speeding up the whole process for all of us and making sure that we're all good. Fantastic, right? Cool. Process automation and RPA. So again, if you don't wanna invest in machine learning, or you think it's super alien for you as of today, there's this area. I wouldn't say really AI. It's more of automation. I think it gets a lot of credit for that it's not really worthy of. But you've got this sort of thing called RPA, robotic process automation. So the idea is whatever that you do on the machine itself can be automated if it's trivial. I'll give you an example. Imagine you have an employee, and that employee basically scans pictures, crops certain areas of the picture, attaches it in an email, and send it through with a line from a PDF file coming in from a customer. Now, this is a very common case. We have a lot of things in retail, a lot of things in corporate. So yeah, basically a lot of things that happen that we can automate fairly easy. It might not be the best choice. I mean, it's not certainly that everything can be automated, but for the most part, when we talk about process-oriented paradigms, process-oriented tasks, it can be automated. So copying things, moving files, sending emails, reading invoices, picking up certain things, just like what I said, can be automated. So with the power of RPAs, you're basically just write a small script. Again, you're not leveraging machine learning to the max here. This is another subdomain of AI, if you want to call it that, or automation. We just draft it in a sketch, in a program where you have arrows and you just drag and drop, and you just put it in, and there you got it. You can automate most of the work that most of your employees do, if it doesn't take a lot of intellectual power, to be quite honest. And this was the case that a lot of business now are depending on RPAs to get their things done. However, there are ethical aspects that I'm not really happy about. A lot of people find it that, okay, this is a great way for us to let go some of the workforce that we have and just rely on the programs that do the job. I beg to differ. I honestly think that it's a collaborative effort. So you want to emphasize on education for your staff if they are worthy of the education, while you do the automation, and you just give them more intellectual bandwidth to focus on things that really matter the most. And this is just trivia for you guys. This is exactly what we do here in INFINITEWARE. So when we go to clients, we are actually super selective. So we don't take every single thing that we get. We really vet the client and double check that their case for automation is really worthy. But most of the times we not really, strike, let's say, gigs in this case, because we're becoming very selective when it comes to selecting these gigs. So yeah, these are RPAs. And in case you did not really, believe whatever I said in the beginning about how effective this is in terms of robotic eyes, just check this out. So Unruing is a very popular figure in the AI space, and he's been a honestly superb workforce in advancing the whole machine learning trend, basically. And so what he's done, this was a project that he's done back in 2017 with his students, I believe, and they managed to do this sort of diagnostic solution for chest pneumonia using x-rays better than the radiologists themselves, which is really funny and scary at the same time. So a task like that takes ages for people to master, where we send our friends and family to learn and study radiology, and all of a sudden you've got a system that manages to do that even better than them. Is quite scary to say the least, in terms of job security. However, it's really great for us as people and just basically humans and patients that we're getting this sort of quality when it comes to diagnostics. So this is really really great, and this is actually super supported by numbers. So you can check it out and you can see his project and you see this. Now this is the news that came around 2017. I know from my last visit to San Francisco last year, there's a lot of focus on machine learning, especially in the healthcare area, and notably now COVID-19. So a lot of people are trying to come up with the best drug for COVID-19, um, dynamically using machine learning algorithms. So, and all of that is based on the data that we had in the past. So again, super grateful for such technologies that are allowing us to do this, notably artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning. And even from a safety and security, so a lot of governments are now putting their cameras to the use to an actual use. So you've got CCTVs all around, right? But most likely, you're you know as a business or entity, you wouldn't really utilize the power of artificial intelligence when it comes to your video feeds. However, during these times, because manpower is becoming very scarce, a lot of things are becoming super automated, and one of them is surveillance. So even surveillance tools now are very popular for detecting social distancing, for example, which is a great project that was done, I believe, by either NVIDIA, if I'm not mistaken, the graphics company, and their stuff are open sourced online, if I'm not mistaken again. But you can check it out. Just write NVIDIA social distancing AI. So you're going to find something online. And all of these things are now powering up our surveillance video stuff. So again, super, super cool. Governments and businesses now rely more and more on an automated way on these tools to pick up the anomalies and the other stuff. So again, super cool. Legal document scanning, almost the same thing that we brought in the beginning. However, this is much more advanced. So when you work in a bank, you know that legal paperwork is a huge headache. There's a lot of details. You have to always rely on, a huge team of attorneys and, people are really experts in the legal space, so they can tell you if you have a clause within your contract that doesn't really make sense. And so JP Morgan is one of the banks that is currently relying on an AI facility that automatically reads the documents, and it can tell you if you have clauses that are shady, that are worthy of looking into manually by the attorney. So this is again something super great, and it's proving to be really, really efficient for people who are, looking forward to have more automation and more bandwidth for them to focus on other stuff during these times, right? Where everything is really remote. Relationship manager performance monitoring also. So you probably heard about the idea of KPIs, key performance indicators, which is a very huge metric system that we use in order to really tell if something is going great. For example, if you have your business and just look at the KPIs, you can tell if you're doing great in terms of, let's say, sales or something else. But nonetheless, even though I have my own doubts on the idea of the principle of KPIs, when we apply to relationship managers, the people who are dealing with the customers, and especially in a corporate environment, it becomes very difficult for us to really tell if they're doing a good job or not. However, with machine learning and deep learning specifically, we can now tell by so many characteristics of these relationships. I'll give you an example for you to be, to understand more what I'm trying to share here. But basically, many banks, many organizations automatically record their calls with their customers, right? Now, the problem is with that is that most likely these calls are not going to be used in something useful. However, when you have a machine learning algorithm that has the computation power, that has the time, that has the data to go over these calls and figure out those characteristics of those people. Like if one of the customers said a word that they shouldn't say, or if their tone was not really the perfect tone, or the selection of words, all of these metrics can be now uh, really figured out. It can be picked up from the calls, and we can, in a way, provide a solution to it, so we can enhance our relationship with the customers. And I'm telling you this because I've seen it in action with a lot of tools supplied by China. I remember I had my hands on a product that was, in a way, it allows you to talk, and then it gets you your psyche, your tone characteristics. So it can tell you if you're feeling agitated, if you're super angry from your tone, if you're frustrated. And all of these things really become beneficial down the line as you try to enhance your call center experience, or you want to make sure that people are happy, with your service altogether. So a really great tool. And the beautiful thing, all of these things are happening dynamically. You're not forcing somebody to look to hear those calls, and you tell them to manually you just characterize and categorize those calls. Another aspect is customer segmentation. You probably remember what I talked earlier about the fields in machine learning. One aspect was unsupervised learning that I said was very promising, however, is much more difficult to deal with. Now, a great practical use case for unsupervised learning is customer segmentation. Now, with customer segmentation, what happens is when you have a lot of information on your customers, for the sake of example, their behaviors, sorry, and their data, their spending habits, and all of these things. What you can do when you put it in a specific, specialized machine learning algorithm or machine learning model that we call um, a clustering machine learning algorithm, it allows you to get that information to be categorized in multiple circles depending on the commonalities across those customers, which is really, really great. And so with this sort of exercise, it will group certain clients all together in certain groups depending on certain characteristics they will be able to pick up, like their spending behaviors, what they're interested in terms of preferences, uh, let's say their loans installments behavior, if they pay on time, if they're likely to default. All of these things can be picked up when using the right AI model, developing the right AI model with the right algorithm that is already out of the box for the most part. So this is really, really great. However, just to make sure that I have this picture clear, remember, because this is an unsupervised learning, we don't have a label at the very end. So it's not like we know exactly what we're trying to predict. We're just giving the information to the machine learning algorithm, and we're telling it, please figure out the commonalities and the data that I gave you, and just give me more information on how they're related to each other, right? So this is customer segmentation, a very popular uh, exercise that banks do. Telcos also do this to make sure that, okay, if they have one client that are about to go bankrupt, or they have a client that are about they're about to leave, or what we call churn, basically to move to another network. And also, and if we talk about banking and in the financial world, if you have a portfolio, managing that portfolio is going to be super difficult if you do it alone. And this is where machine learning and robo advisors really come into play. They will be able to see what the market is currently doing. Of course, with sufficient data that you can provide them with, your habits and interests. Uh, your individual track record, and all of these things, and they can all automatically be managed using a robo-advisor. However, as I said, I wouldn't really give the full control, the full wheel to the robo-advisors as of today, given that the market is fragile and a lot of people still trying to figure out what the hell is happening basically during these times. And so, but the best way to look at this is to treat those robo-advisors is like a second pair of eyes. It's like more of an advisor. Just take it by its meaning. It's an advisor. It wouldn't really take something and do something without your consent. However, it just presents you with information that it finds useful. So just think about it in this way as it becomes easier for us to understand. Cool. Let's talk about the last but not least aspect of this talk today, which is the adoption topic and the risks behind AI, specifically machine learning. There's a lot of hype, and I'm planning to clear it out just to make sure that we're all in the clear. We all know what we're talking about here, about the tech and the business aspects. So yes, let's talk about adoption first. So my advice to a lot of people, given that that I spent a lot of time in this field, the most important aspect to understand is that AI is not currently the ultimate replacement for whatever we do, like altogether. Yes, there are good use cases where AI is super great as a replacement for narrow tasks. For example, computer vision, when you want to pick up things from the image, when you want to take things from like a handwriting, you want to recognize it. All of these things resemble the perfect scenario as they are super narrow. So the spectrum of the use cases is very narrow. You might think it's great, yes, but we cannot compare it to a human being. A human being is much more advanced, and humans have a plethora of skill sets and things that allow them to be the basically the species on top of the food chain. And so with AI, we're not there yet. So there's a lot of fake news and a lot of Hollywood material that allows people to go and get scared that hey, we're not ready for this yet. Yes, we're not ready maybe in terms of other stuff, in terms of managing data, in terms of privacy and such. But when it comes to having AI in every aspect, we're not there yet. And so if we need to summarize what these things are good for, they're basically really, really, really good when it comes to killing basically repetitiveness. So the things that we do all together, all the time, with no change or no dynamic feeling. And so the first thing that will be taken away by those machine learning agents that people are developing, including here, us, and INFINITEWARE, is the routine job. So everything that is basically a routine job, it doesn't have a dynamic feel to it. It's not dynamic. It's not flexible. It's going to be the first suspect for us to take down and through automation and machine learning. All right. So this is one thing that we have to put in mind. And also, even for you, be it like if you are businesses, if you're entrepreneurs, if you are technical people, if you are banks or even big corporates, starting within this space is really easy now. We can't compare it to what it used to be maybe 20 or 30 years back, where there's been a lot of resistance in this topic. So yeah, starting is easy, and I'm going to show you the right tools that you can use, the right path that you can follow in order to do this, no matter what your plan is. And almost everything is free as of today, which is super cool. So from a financial perspective, you're not spending money, you're just investing your time and your core skills in order to pick up what really matters about this space, artificial intelligence and machine learning. All right. So if you're starting within this space and you're trying to cut some of the costs, the first thing that I'll really suggest is you want to get your hands dirty with robotic process automation, the thing that I talked about a few minutes ago, RPAs. Just get automation really quick with minimal work. You don't want to invest in machine learning. You don't want to invest in picking up data, cleaning them. It's a hectic job. And so with robotic process automation, you just draft a plan using a drag and drop sort of environment where you can just tell the program, pick up the email, copy this text, send it through if it's like that, identify the digits, and all of these things. So all of these use cases can be done under the umbrella of robotic process automation, which is fairly easy to do. And there are a lot of tools like that online. So I believe if I'm not making any, I'm really sorry about that. I forgot a couple of products that I had in my mind earlier to this talk. Oh yeah, UiPath. I just remembered. So UiPath is a very reputable business that does RPA really, really well. So you probably want to shed some light on that and give it a look if you're interested, to automate things as soon as possible with the, with with a very short amount of time. Cool. Now, what is important for you to understand before you get your hands dirty in machine learning, not talking about RPA here, is that it's a serious investment. So as you saw, there's a lot of Lego parts that are at play here. You have data, you have machine learning algorithms to be chosen, um, you've got data scientists, or let's say machine learning engineers, who should work with this sort of paradigm, preparing the data pipeline, adjusting the data pipeline as it goes, managing data itself. Big data is a huge aspect. It's not as easy as it sounds. So before you get into that hassle, into that headache, you want to make sure that you're fine. You know what you want. And this is the $1,000,000 question. So before you start and you get crazy and think about all of these things, you just want to think about what it really is that you want to accomplish. Are you trying to pick up a number? Are you trying to predict a number in your business, be it sales, for example, or uh, let's say you're forecasting how much money you're going to make in the next 3 months, for the sake of example. So all of these are legit questions. And before you choose the technology, you get crazy about deep learning and the technicalities behind it. You want to make sure that you know what you want to do. So I can't emphasize on that enough, honestly, because in my experience, I've seen a lot of people getting so excited about machine learning because they think it's super cool and it's the hype. However, they really get themselves into trouble because it might not be exactly what you want to do. And remember, there's a lot of investment to be done in terms of manpower, uh, preserving data, thinking about data retention, probably the legalities behind data. So this is one topic that you want to put your minds. You want to really focus on asking the right question before you just jump in on the machine learning wagon. And the second thing to put in mind is that everything is available. So long gone are the days where people have to create their own tools from scratch, focus on what they should do, create programs, hire engineers, super technical engineers to get things done on the space. However, currently, with the advent of this technology and the huge adoption that we're currently seeing, everything is almost ready. You just pick up the tools and you just put your time and data into it, and there you have it. You really benefit from everything that the technology offers. So I want to shed light that the open source community is super generous. They've been serving a lot of industries for a very long time. So the banking industry, the financial space, the industry itself, engineering, and every aspect that currently we bring up to the table really benefited from the open source tool set and umbrella and culture. So you've got tools, so many tools that we probably use on a daily basis without thinking about it. Notably Linux, which is powering up almost all of our phones if you're running on Android. So super, super cool, right? So yeah, and all of these tools, by the way, are even used in open banking in case you did not know. Now, if you plan to start and you are interested in the technical space or technical aspect about this exercise, I suggest those things here that you find here in the picture. You've got NumPy. NumPy is a great Python library if you're into Python programming. Again, by the way, Python is super easy to learn. It probably take you 2 hours to 4 hours depending on how fast you are. But if you're already a programmer who knows uh, different languages, you probably just pick up almost all of Python in half an hour, 45 minutes max. I mean, I'm talking about like from experience. So yeah, NumPy is a great Python library that allows you to do things using machine learning. TensorFlow is the biggest and the most important one by far, which is done by Google. So Google has outsourced their TensorFlow platform, which is used for machine learning, and it's all free. And there's a lot of resources out there. You can even find it online. And if you are interested in the technical stuff of it, you can also look at the source code of TensorFlow if you're the tinkerer kind. Everything is online. PyTorch is also another machine learning algorithm, also very popular. I believe was done by Facebook. OpenCV is a great computer vision library In fact, this is what CV stands for: computer vision, open computer vision. A great library to allow you to pick up faces, pick up wrong things in the picture, figure out anomalies. And in case you did not know it, cars that we like automated cars for the most part rely on such tools, mostly and notably OpenCV, as it's free and open source. Keras is one of my favorites, honestly. It's a small, lightweight Python library that works on top of engines like TensorFlow, so you don't need to know the exact math and the technical details that are really crazy about machine learning. If you're intending to go that deep, you can just pick up a very sophisticated, high-level API or interface for machine learning, where you just specify the data source, the shape of the neural network or the deep learning network that you have, and you just wait for it to learn from the data, and you can just test it out and predict if things are, working according to your taste. Cafe also is a very popular one, but also, I just want to make sure if you're starting out, just put your hands on Keras. Keras is really great. OpenCV is also, you can find direct results directly. So Keras is amazing. You don't want to miss that. All right. With a small amount of Python, you can get up running. And also, one thing really, really worthy of telling you guys of is the cloud providers that we're currently working with. So AWS, Google Cloud Platform, GCP, Microsoft Azure, they're really great platforms, and they are making things way easier for all of us. So even if you are a business that doesn't want to get their hands dirty with data, maybe hiring people and every single thing, now these services, they offer you something on they offer you things on their cloud. Notably in GCP, there's AutoML, which is the idea of just providing us with the data. We're going to take care of the actual code and training it for you and everything. You just tell me what you want to, like in terms of classification. It's just a matter of uploading photos of images, photos of cats, photos of dogs, and you just tell it to categorize the items that I have here into things, so either cats or dogs, and it'll be able to do that by itself. So it's super great, super efficient, and it works on the cloud, meaning you don't maintain any infrastructure, everything. I wouldn't say free, maybe cheap when you have the right, settings and everything, but it's super flexible and easy for a lot of people, even if they don't have the technical, disciplines to go forward. AWS has something called SageMaker. Microsoft Azure has its own thing. By the way, Microsoft Azure has great stuff. I can't emphasize on that enough. In our products in INFINITEWARE, we have been we've been loyal customers to Microsoft Azure, really depending on so many of their tools, so many of their assets, and getting things done, which was super great. It spared us a lot of headache in setting up our models and relying on, and our clients, they feel also empowered because they're always, supported by Microsoft, which is really, really great to hear by any customer. Now, I want to shed a very short amount of time here on the subject of open banking. Now, open banking is also a great deal. It requires its own session. However, I just brought it up so I can tell you that now when you have an open banking infrastructure ready in Bahrain, the second we get this, we'll be able to have tremendous amounts of use cases that can rely on AI also. So AI is a big customer of the data, as we said. And so with open banking, it's no longer the case that the banks are going to hold on to your data. Whatever that I talked about in the past, in terms of core banking, your behavior as a customer and every single thing, it used to be the monopoly of the bank. But however, with open banking, this dawn is coming soon, meaning as a third-party provider, TPP for short, or an entrepreneur basically, or a company, you'll be able to write programs that can take the data, of course, with the consent of the user. When the user gets you the consent, the customer gets you the consent, you can pick up their transactions, their loans, their customer details, their credit card from their respective banks directly, and you can do a lot of use cases on top of that, which is really great. So everything that we talked about prediction, financial advisory, budgeting, it all can work autonomously, using the power of machine learning with the access of data. So back in the past, it used to be a huge headache because no matter what you do, you won't be able to pick up the data from the customer. The customer has to get you, through their consent, maybe an extraction of their data. They're going to give you a CSV file or a text file using Excel of their items, which is a huge headache. You want to have an automated system that automatically just hooks up to their accounts and get the information. Now, with the advent of open banking, along with the, artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning, we can get those things done and it'll feel much more organic, which is super great to all of us, especially retail customers. Yeah. So this is a snippet from another talk that I've done. It's called Open Banking. In case you're interested, you can always find me on my website and just, follow me. And I'm sure we're gonna have a topic about open banking coming up soon. Yeah. So in summary, just for the business aspects, imagine as if this was your roadmap into a machine learning adoption. The first thing that you want to do is you want to invest in good data. Now, I can't stress on this enough. If you have data, it might not be useful, might not be usable in its current form. So the data normally goes into what we call a conditioning pipeline, meaning the data before it becomes useful and usable in any AI algorithm, it has to be cleaned. It has to be cleansed to make sure that it is in its format and not in the raw format that we can use. And so in order to do that, you have to surround yourself with people who can actually handle this. This is where the subject of data science come to the picture. So you probably heard about data science, machine learning engineers. These people are responsible for holding and making sure that the infrastructure, that the data comes in the form that we can rely on and actually benefit from, right? The second thing is know what you want to get. So in terms of answers, just have a very explicit question that you're trying to solve. Remember, machine learning is not a toy, so most likely you can get things done without even using machine learning. So when you want to use machine learning, you want to make sure that it is really worthwhile to use machine learning and have the investment in there. So before you go and you hop on the wagon, just make sure you have the proper thing you're trying to solve. Is it customer retention? Is it churn? Whatever it is, just have it there clear before you jump into this. Third, utilize the existing tools and infrastructure available. Never reinvent the wheel. And again, I'm putting these things in here because I can't stress on those enough. I know a lot of engineers thinking that because it's just fun for them to reinvent some of the tools in machine learning and AI that they're going to use in their business. However, if you are under let's say, in a fierce competition, you want to make sure you get up and running really, really fast. And the way we do this is that we just adopt existing tools that are worthy of our time, that are proven to work, by the way. So tools like TensorFlow that I showed you guys by Google is more than enough actually to work on your stuff if you ever want to. So super great. Don't really create anything from scratch unless you're just tinkering and you just want to explore, because otherwise you're missing out on a lot of really reliable tool sets and stuff. Also, start with a small proof of concept for quick results, mostly automation. Some people get carried away, honestly, when they think about machine learning. They think that, hey, we probably can do this by this year. We're gonna have 6 products and everything. My advice to you to not be kicked in the face by reality is you just start with something really small, a small proof of concept. A good example is you try to predict the price of a product that you have. Try to predict if your customer wants this thing, like from a recommendation point of view. Or you can also get your hands on RPAs, the robotic process automation, the thing that I talked about in the past, like in a couple past minutes. But yeah, automation is a great deal. You can start with that. If you are happy with your results, you can go forward and then pick up more of the machine learning plate as you go. But however, you're building up your experience and such. So again, these are the stuff that I really get you guys as important to actually follow a very clear line when it comes to intentions, roadmap before you get your hands dirty. Let's talk about the risks for a second before we close down. Now, even though I talked about AI and machine learning specifically as the holy grail, it doesn't come without its issues, right? Sorry about that. Yeah, so it doesn't come without its issues. So number one is machine learning in general is data hungry. It takes a lot of data to get things done, right? Just like what I said. So in order for an algorithm to really detect the difference between, let's say, Amin and Ahmed in terms of their facial gestures, we have to submit a lot of photos of myself and Ahmed also in order for the machine to be able to pick up those, nuances, the differences between the two faces. And this is the case with so many of the functionalities that we look forward to use in machine learning. So it doesn't come without its quirks. If you ever want to do something within machine learning, you have to have enough data, clean data that you can work with. So sometimes it's easier said than done. So from experience, I can tell you having clean and sufficient data is very difficult. This is why a lot of businesses have their own core business model within the AI space to just bring you the data, you do the rest. So you can tell how difficult this is. However, we've got open sources, open resources for this. So you've got kaggle.com, which is a great resource for data if you're trying to do demos or such. So my advice, go to kaggle.com. You will most likely find whatever you find in there, whatever you want in there, like health data, business data, even video games. It's super crazy to have all sort of details in there, and then you can pick up what you want to do. The second thing is, which is by far the most difficult one, is it's a mystery black box. So machine learning, as we said in the beginning, was not really new. So machine learning has its own ways. However, this new advent that happened in 2013 created or emphasized on this new type of AI or machine learning called deep learning, where we feed a lot of data, and we don't know exactly how it does its work. You might remember from the slide that I showed in the beginning that you basically feed an input, you feed an output, and you get the program that you want. I wouldn't say I lied, but I wanted to make sure it's much more, it's simpler than what it really is. So when you teach a neural network or when you teach an AI system, you have a model, an AI model that does what you want it to do after looking a lot of data, through a lot of data. You don't get code, honestly. You get a mathematical formula that is supported by variables and a lot of factors. And the idea behind machine learning is you're trying to tweak the right knobs, the right buttons, the right, basically knobs, yes, in order to get to the output from the input. So it's like a fancy polynomial formula in a way, if you think about it. Not entirely true, but in a way, yes. And so what this takes us to is that you don't have code that you can vet. You don't have something that you can look through and say if you have something going correctly according to plan, something bad is happening. You can't really tell. So we have to see by results. A good example of the mishaps that we've found in this design is that even Amazon, you might remember, Amazon had a lot of issues recognizing dark faces, dark toned faces in its facial gesture systems. And the reason is because while training, while supplying a lot of data to the system to learn, it was given white faces, white toned faces, to learn from. And so it did not recognize dark faces as faces worthy of, identifying. Again, so this problem is called bias, and you can't really tell and vet this because, again, it's not code that you can look into and vet if this is going great, if this is against my values. You have to look at the output and then tell if you're doing well or not, right? And also, machine learning is very slow, meaning if you have data and you feed it into the system, it's going to take you a while in order to get to that model that can tell the difference between what you're trying to categorize, basically. So because it's a it's a super computationally expensive process to teach the computer or neural networks or AI models in this case to learn from the data, it becomes very difficult and slow to get results. A lot of people like in Google and such because they're using the cloud. They can see the results in 3 days, where they have an AI model ready to be tested, or probably 5 days, depending on how much you can afford of the cloud in terms of computational power. If you can afford a lot of machines, a lot of good specs, you'll be able to get your trained model really, really fast. However, you're going to have to wait. This is why a lot of the training that happens in machine learning, or let's say the neural network training aspect, doesn't happen on the machine itself, not on your desktop, even if you have a powerful machine, because a single machine might not be good enough for complicated issues, complicated problems. All right. However, with the cloud, you've got some really good offerings. You've got GCP that allows you to do things for $300, I think, as a start for free or something. So yeah, a lot of offerings out there. Make use of those guys and make sure you get what you want to get in terms of results, just to make sure that you have your hand dirty with the platform. And also, when we talk about those things like technology in general, we can never escape the ultimate truth that things like big data, blockchain, even smart stuff, IoT, autonomous cars, wearables, and even machine learning and AI, they never can escape the idea of hacks and security. So even machine learning algorithms are susceptible to attackers. So there's a lot of attacks that I shed some light on last year. If you ever witnessed my talk in BIDEC, which was for the government, basically I showed that a lot of people can take advantage of machine learning models in order to craft certain payloads in order to fake the system, just lie on the system and allow the system to think that you are somebody you're not. So what I'm trying to say here, even machine learning, even deep learning is susceptible to attacks. So we also have to really be careful of whatever that we're doing here in this area. It can always be used against us if it's in the wrong hands. Last but not least, within the space, probably in the Middle East, we don't give a lot of regard to the aspect of data. However, with the advent of machine learning and all of these good, cool stuff that we're getting from machine learning, a lot of people are turning now their focus on the ethical issues behind acquiring data. And so it's super important for us to get educated on this space. You probably heard about GDPR for compliance of data, and we have in Bahrain what we call BDPL, Bahrain Data Protection Law, which tells you what's wrong, what's right, what you can and what you can't do. And so if you're a company that makes money out of those spaces, you want to make sure that you really know your way around the ethical and the legal framework of, basically monetizing from data and the perks that we've seen so far. So yes, ethical issues are a huge deal so far. We've seen that in the Cambridge Analytica with Facebook, a good example of really bad stuff that can happen to the data. But nonetheless, ethical issues are still a huge deal, a very hot deal that a lot of people are trying to figure out a resolution to in this space. Yeah, before I close, I just want to say in the race of business, data can either make or break your business. So this is something I said earlier on, and I still live by it. You have to really understand that data currently can really make your business become better, or it can really just put you down the drain. So focus on creating the right data infrastructure just to make sure that you're good, that you can really use whatever that you've seen so far in this presentation. So yeah, just give it a lot of focus. It has a lot of, benefits in terms of return on investment. So it's worthy to, be focused on this space. Before I open up to questions, I want to tell you that after this talk, you can get back to the main event. But yeah, I wanted to say thank you very much to all of you for joining in and tuning in today for this session. You can always reach me at ameenaltajer.com or at Ameen Al Tajer for Twitter and Instagram. I'm always available, super fast in replying to people. You'll be able to check out my business portfolio, what we do for businesses in terms of my speaking gigs. And you can also check out INFINITEWARE.com for our in-house products. We never get anything from the outside. We've done everything in-house in Bahrain with the other 8 members on my team. And yeah, it's been a very cool journey basically to be in this space. It's very uncertain, but however, it's super great. So again, thank you very much for being here, and I'm gonna open up to questions, and you can probably write your questions here. And yeah, thank you, Shalini. Appreciate it. I'm super grateful that you guys enjoyed this session. Let's see, do we have any more questions? Let's see. Any more questions, guys, so far? I think people are, yeah. All right, let's see. In the open data world, where are all the banks, or let's see, banks have access to data? How can AI make a difference? Well, I'll tell you what, from experience, a lot of banks don't exactly know what to do with data. This is funny, right? They're sitting on a gold mine of data, but however, they don't know exactly what to do with it. And so the whole premise of open banking is you want to take this monopoly and you want to open this platform for businesses, for individuals like yourself, like me, and our business to actually make use of the data. So when it becomes open, when it's vetted, when it's controlled, when it's reliable, we can create new applications. We can create really great services, originating from the data in hand, especially the financial world. It has a lot of data. It has a lot of, important stuff about your life, your behavior, basically, where you go, the location, your spending habits. Those things are really worthy of, a great product that can encompass all of these details and create something meaningful, to us as customers. So I think this is debatable. There's a lot of details in here. I won't be able to do justice, honestly, but I can tell you great products, great services, and more great stuff for retail people, especially retail people. So I think this is great. Adi is asking me, what is the future of AI jobs? Just give me a second. I'll just sip a bit of water. All right. My apologies. So I was saying, what is the future of AI jobs in Bahrain? Honestly, mm, this depends. I'm trying to raise awareness, as in my speaking gigs that I do, just like this one, and then in INFINITEWARE, we're trying to, make sure to show people that hey, there are a lot of benefits in AI. However, we have to do it ethically. We have to do it, within the legal and ethical framework, because we don't want to just shut people off of their, opportunities and education. I mean, the gap in education is really it's subjective, and so not everyone is going to be able to jump to this area unless they have proper training. So I think the future of jobs in Bahrain is really cool because Bahrain is such a small, population, and so it's very easy for us to pick up things faster than other regions and countries. But I think we're going great. However, I really emphasize on the idea of education. Salah is saying, does banking and finance have future for job opportunity? It will rely on AI and banking in Bahrain and worldwide. Okay, I have clear views on this. Not everyone might like those. However, banking and finance is going to stay. It's going to evolve though. So in open banking, if you ever witnessed one of my talks before, if you ever had the chance, you'll probably see that the way banks are currently moving to is that they're not becoming the so-called banks that we know in the past. They're becoming more of partners, honestly. So they're more of your financial partner. They will tell you what to do. They will tell you where to go, how to spend your money. They're not just there to put your money in the vault and they just go away. So yeah, yeah, think about it in this way. So, but if we talk about the items within the banking itself, the banking space in terms of jobs and tasks like accounting, financial stuff, uh, finance in terms of opportunities and the actual jobs that people do, I think it's going to change severely. So I'm not saying they're going to be taken away. However, I think there's a lot of workload that is going to be delegated to machines. For example, calculation. We've been seeing this in tools and stuff that are coming every single day to take things, from the hands of people and give it to machines. So yeah, not all gone, but however, we have to be super ready to not be in the dark when things hit down, okay? Let's see. Hamad Naeem is saying, is there any initiative in terms of courses from BIBF, InfiniteWare, and AI? Yes, in InfiniteWare, we do a lot of education. We actually have a variety of customers. You probably can see that on our website, infiniteware.com. A lot of customers are benefiting from our programs and courses. We don't only just teach courses, we also have a fleet of people who can take your engineers by hand and show them where to use the data, how to actually make use of the data. So this is cool. If you're thinking about it from a commercial perspective, from a commercial point of view. So yeah, BIBF have their own lineup of courses. I also teach in BIBF, so I have occasional gigs with BIBF when they teach people, when they have demand in AI, machine learning. I show people demos and such, and I show them how to do this by hand. Not only theoretical, I also show them from a practical point of view also. So if you're interested, you can also go there and ask the guys if you want to do it under BIBF. Ali, you're super welcome. I'm happy that I answered your question. Hashim is saying, do you believe it is easy for people in finance background to switch to computer science? To be quite honest, computer science is a umbrella of things that uh, umbrella of items that challenge people's intellectual skills. So I think if you're good, if you have a good bandwidth intellectually, or you have a good way for you to think critically, you can definitely do that leap. It's not a big deal, right? And also, everyone knows that education is only one aspect of it, but actually making use of it, doing things is what really matters, right? So yeah, there you have it. It's not the end of the world if you have a background in finance. You can always do the switch. However, you have to focus on your education. And when I say education, I'm not saying you strictly have to focus on academic education. You can also get practical stuff out there. You can get demos, you can get your hands dirty, you can read books, you can follow courses online on uh, other platforms like Coursera and such. So yeah, it's great. Zainab is saying, what if there is a problem with the internet? How can an institution overcome this problem when they are relying on AI? There you have it. See, with AI, it's just a paradigm. It's a shift of platform and tools. You don't have to rely on the internet. Just like what I said in the beginning, our solution, Coveria, doesn't rely on the internet, and we do acknowledge that. Even though it's accessible over the internet, over VPN lines when you need it, it was mainly done for people to use within the organization, within internally the organization. So it's not accessible from the outside unless you're using a VPN. And it was done for that purpose because we know a lot of institutions, like banks or such, they're not fond of using the internet. They want to do things internally. And so this is where you can use it. So everything that I showed now here doesn't rely on the internet. You can make it rely on the internet. For example, with GCP, Google Cloud Platform, or AWS, you can train an AI system to exactly know what it wants to do. However, you can use it later on to predict within an organization without the internet access. So you've got a lot of flexibility if you get what I'm saying. Yeah? Shalini is saying, considering the dynamic nature of the universe, right, as Coach, how relevant can AI be in terms of forecasting and not predicting certain and predicting certain outcomes? For example, as you said, credit scoring, the algorithms were based on past data. So will it be able to do prediction unexpected? Yeah, this is a really, really cool question. So what happens is, remember, it might seem that AI is magical, but honestly, if you put it down and break it down, it's a fancy mathematical model, right? It's a very fancy mathematical model that requires less work from people consider, like if you compare to the statistical models that we used to have in the past. And so everything that you get is the result of the data that you have. So I do agree. So a big question that we have in machine learning and AI, the nature of data that you put into the system. And so if this system can pick up old patterns in the past of something similar, let's say old pandemics or so, it will probably be able to pick up certain things and get you a warning. But this again depends back to the data. So yeah, it all depends on how good your data is, how wide it is. So remember, in machine learning, everything goes back to the data, because the data, okay, let me give you an analogy you can really understand. You as a human being, as you roam around the world, you learn from your experiences, and your experiences can be good or bad. And so with machine learning, it's exactly the same case. When you see items, when you see experiences, you will see more data, you'll be able to generalize better. However, if you don't see all the data, you won't be able to generalize really that accurately, but you're doing your best bet, in your best effort in order to, forecast what's happening. So yes, I'm sure this is a difficult problem. However, to a great extent, this is doable. But I think for COVID, it's a bit of shocker, honestly. I don't think anyone predicted that before. However, I can be wrong. Salah is saying, what does it take to open a bank? Now, this is a different topic. There's a lot of details if you want. However, there's a talk that I've done for Google, Google Middle East, and it's actually available online. You can check it out on YouTube. Just write Ameen Al Tajer in Arabic and write المصرفية المفتوحة, open banking, and you're gonna find my talk for Google. It was done 3 weeks ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago, which was really great. So it sheds a lot of details on that space. But yeah, there's a lot of technical details. Honestly, I think it's better to check this out there. Does anyone tried or to use AR class as human that can be used for the same? Yes, I know people, but not in Bahrain. I know people on the outside, they use this. Ali is saying, which professional certificate are required to start a career in AI? I personally don't recommend certificates. Maybe again, it's subjective. I have my own ways of doing things. However, I think portfolio and practice really matters. You can get a certificate, but if you don't know how to execute things, it doesn't really matter that much. You might as well just pick it up and put it on the wall. Yeah. All right. So Zainab is saying there are some companies or institutions who cannot rely on AI during pandemic. For example, health clubs. How can they maintain their business since they are the ones that are? Well, this depends on the creativity of their usage for AI. I wouldn't be able to really tell. I'm not the best guy to really think about this since I don't own a gym or something similar. However, they can get better in different things. For example, they can forecast and just things coming up out of the top of my mind here. Maybe in their branding, they can create content to keep people engaged with their brand, to not let them go. So yeah, many things here and there. I'm not sure if I can really come up with those here on spot. However, this depends, and I know for gyms it's a very difficult case, to be quite honest. Shall I say thanks, Ahmed? Oh, I mean, sure. It's a pleasure. Salah is saying, can you put the link by any chance in the chat? All right, just give me a second. Let me try to find that. Yeah, there you have it. I got it. Okay, so for the people interested, here's the link to my open banking talk that I've done for Google 3 weeks back. It's actually in Arabic, so you're going to enjoy it if you're interested. I'm not sure if you have more questions. I'm just going to wait for 60 seconds to make sure that I have everything in here before I close this. But again, I just want to say, any of you guys have any questions, or should we call it a day? Let's see. All right, looking forward. Start a bank company. If you mean open banking company, check out the talk, but I can tell you here in advance, you have to do a lot of work with the central bank, and yeah, it's a paperwork basically, and technical details maybe. But I think the other talk, just to summarize it, will get you a very cool and solid idea. All right, then. I think that is pretty much it. Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. I really appreciate you sticking around. I hope you really enjoyed the session. I'm super grateful to you guys. You can also get this email, which is my email. You can submit, your thoughts and stuff. Oh, I'm very happy. Thank you, Gandhi. And you got my website here, ameenaltajer.com. If you want to reach out on social media, at Ameen Al Tajer. Check out our work, and I will see you soon. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Take care, guys.